Well, we've talked about Donald Trump's tax bill a lot on this show, but there's a hidden lesson in the latest drama that I think Democrats need to pay attention to. Donald Trump, we know, has been battling disparate wings of the Republican Party, trying to get folks on board with roughly what amounts to like a $5 trillion increase in government spending. But he's doing it. He might not get it by that July 4th deadline, which, by the way, he admitted is totally made up and useless, but he's going to get this bill. Compare that to the way that Joe Biden utilized or underutilized the bully pulpit for his entire term in office. And it's not just on economic policy. It was on things like the George Floyd Voting Rights Act. If Joe Biden had been able to use the bully pulpit, get, for example, Joe Manchin to sign on to the Build Back Better bill, just one lawmaker, we'd be in a totally different place. It's like his sliding doors moment. He could have prevented the entire progressive revolt, and he could have taken the legs out from Trump's tax push, again, by reauthorizing the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act cuts and making the child tax credit even larger and permanent.
Yeah.
Democrats, next time you get in office, you cannot wait around to restore the norms of yesteryear, especially when your opponents do not care about that at all and will violate the law to try and enact their agenda. Time is of the essence, so when you get back in office, act like there is no tomorrow.
We're getting a nice recap, refresher in how the rules of reconciliation work if you want to pass a bill in the Senate just by a narrow party line vote. It's over a 10-year window. You have to feign some sort of deficit neutrality. And the way you can stack that 10-year window, it is not all made the same. So some of the revolt with the House Freedom Caucus members, the more conservative members of the Republican coalition, they are correctly asking for the spending cuts to come earlier. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have all the giveaways, all the freebies stacked in the first 2-3 years of the bill and not have any of the pay-fors kick in until the end of the 10-year bill. Technically, you can do that, but that is not ideal for a number of reasons. One, any president can come in after and change the law.
Correct.
But two, what you don't want to do is create inflation. This was Joe Biden's original sin, right? Joe Biden specifically just said, I want to go too big, because he had this sort of PTSD over 2008 and how TARP played out. And so he said, I want to go too big. He did not have any other policy priorities after that. So instead of, using whatever savings you could have to pay for a permanent increase to the child tax credit, something that really would have, yes, taken a big weapon away from Republicans. If he had just made TCJA extension permanent and, used whatever carbon tax he wanted to use, I know that was a conversation early on, he could have done it. Instead, it was let's have a bunch of freebies go crazy in the first 2 years, and that created a lot of excess inflation. And that was the inflation that doomed his president. It's why I always said, Kamala Harris wasn't a great candidate, but there was nothing you could do to undo the pernicious effects of Americans losing 4% of their earnings over the course of Biden's presidency, right? So Trump is not necessarily a budget hawk, and he's not a budget maven, but he did correctly say, these are my priorities. You must extend the expiring provisions of TCJA, and I want no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and some, Social Security seniors benefit. Everything else he was willing to negotiate with, right? And Trump did a pretty good job stepping in when it mattered. And this is, again, someone who is not known for his incredible attention to detail. And even so, he did correctly know when to use the bully pulpit to make sure the SALT caucus understood, okay, you get 30, maybe 40, but after that, you're done. And we're going to start looking into primarying you if you don't play ball.
Yeah.
And if you don't prove you're here to make a deal.
It's amazing to me that given Joe Biden's lengthy, extensive career in politics, someone like Donald Trump, who not only doesn't read the briefing books, but quite literally has been on the political scene, for a ham sandwich, essentially, he understands how Congress operates much more effectively, or is able to.
He understands how people operate.
Yeah, okay, that's the key. So I don't want to beat a dead horse here because, again, Joe Biden is out of office and we want to look forward.
That's your answer, Christian. Old.
Well, no, it's not even that.
It's because he wasn't with it. If it were Joe Biden, we all remember Joe Biden, how he wrangled all the votes for ACA. he was a master of the Senate. He was a master of the backslapping, smoke-filled rooms. He was genuinely very good at it.
Yeah.
The reason he was not doing it this time was because he could not, because he was old and senile, and the White House was hiding his condition.
I'm not gonna say that he wasn't diminished, because he obviously was. We all had eyes and ears, and we were there in the room very frequently, being like, "What the heck is going on?" But I think more importantly, I mentioned this at the top when we were talking about Mamdani. Joe Biden didn't stand on business, right?
Yeah.
He didn't actually care about any of those things that are in there. And like Donald Trump,
Just
on the other
FDR
hand,
legacy. That's all he wanted.
yeah, no, it's literally, and he was grab bagging things that sounded great to progressives, and he thought that they wanted, and so he like couldn't invest himself directly in this because he didn't really care about it, and the White House didn't structure or work with lawmakers to structure the legislation in a better way because they're just like, oh, we're checking all the boxes, and they didn't really think this thing through down the line. We have to elect lawmakers who will govern the way they say they will. And again, like, I don't want to give Donald Trump props for this at all, but you know what he cares about. He cares about immigration and he cares about trade. And that's about it. And that's okay. And on immigration and on trade, he does what he is saying he's going to do. Like, it mystifies me that Democrats are like, oh, well, why do like the Republicans, why are they so in love with Donald Trump? It's like, A, he's incredibly charismatic, and B, even though he lies all the time, generally, when it comes to his...
But he says the truths that the rest of D.C. and the swamp and the media lies about.
Yeah.